Here we have some raw data, we have no totals, our headings are unique, and it's time for us to create a pivot table. If your data is well structured like this, then all you need to do is to select a cell inside, go to the Insert tab in the ribbon, and here to the left you have Pivot Table. Press on it, this box will appear, and make sure that the range is the correct one, and the option to place it either in a new sheet or in an existing worksheet. Let's place it in an existing worksheet and select the H2 cell here and press on OK. That means that the pivot table will be next to the data. What happens now is that there are two new tabs up in the ribbon. You have Pivot Table Analyze and Design, and the Design tab is mostly about how it looks, but also if you want to include subtotals, grand totals, and the layout of the report. In my case, I'm not in this tab so frequently. I'm very often in the Pivot Table Analyze, because here you have the tools that you can use for this pivot table. Also to the right you have the pivot table fields, and you have all the different headings in your data that you're supposed to drag to one of the fields here down below. If you drag a column to the columns or the rows field, that means that all the unique values in that column will be listed either in different rows or in different columns. In the values field, you will drag the data with values in it. Let's say we drag our fruit to our rows and our quantity to our values. Now you can see that each fruit has the total quantity, and you can drag multiple fields into the same rows. For example, if you put company first and then fruit, you will first have the company names and then the fruit for each company and the total for that company and that fruit. Maybe you already knew this so far, and we will go on to some tips and tricks. First of all, if your data looks like this, then it's impossible to use a SUMIFS function if you would like to do that. What I usually do is that I change it to be a traditional view. We right click on it, we press on Pivot Table Options, and in the display section we make sure that it's a classic pivot table layout. Press on OK, and then we right click again and field settings, and in the layout and print we make sure that we repeat item labels. Or we could also do that in the design up here, and here in report layout you have repeat all item labels. Now you could sum ifs and sum for the company name and the fruit if you want to do that. That's one trick that I've learned. Also, perhaps you want to count instead of sum. What you can do is to click on the values down here and value field settings, but you can also double click on the sum of quantity to open it up here. And here you can change it to count or whatever you want to. Also here you have the possibility to change the format. As you can see, it's not a very well formatted number format. You press on number format, go to number, and then decrease our decimals and use 1000 separator. Press on OK, change it to sum again, press on OK, and here we have a better format. And the tools that you have in the Pivot Table Analyze are, for example, Insert Slicer. It has the similar concept as filters. For example, if we take country and press on OK, you will see all the unique values in the country listed, and you can pick one. For example, France, you will see now only 2 companies here. If you hold the control button, you can select multiple, and if you hold the shift button, you will select all that's in between. Also, if you have multiple pivot tables and you want one slicer to connect to both of them, you right click on the slicer, go to Report Connections, and make sure that both pivot tables are marked. If you have dates in your data, then it's possible to insert a timeline. If you change the data, then you need to refresh the pivot table either by pressing on refresh here or right click on the pivot table and press on refresh. Let's say you add data underneath your previous data. This pivot table is only for the range to the row 1000, and then you need to add the other cells as well. That means that you need to change the data source here to perhaps 1200 or whatever. And then the last tool that I will show you is the field items and sets. If you press on calculate field, that means that you can create your own formula. Instead of doing it in the data, you do it here. And then you can drag that field into one of the areas down below. And if you want to change a calculated field, you just press on this arrow here to open up all the calculated fields that you've created. And that's pretty much how you create and customize your pivot table to look like how you want it to look like. In the next video, I will show you a tip that I learned quite recently that will make you create pivot tables much faster.